Where's your helper? Where's your helper?
I don't know.
One that just wrapped her.
Ms. Phillips.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Ashley Phillips, I'm Legislative Service Editor at the Legislative Service Office. I am here today to present to you the memorandum titled Review of Other States' Dual and Concurrent Enrollment Programs. As part of the Joint Education Committee's priority number 2 topic, dual and concurrent enrollment programs, the Legislative Service Office was asked to provide an overview of Washington's dual enrollment program and similar programs in other states. I did some research to determine which other states had programs similar to Washington's, and so that is why you see a summary of both Minnesota and Ohio in front of you as well. Before we get too far, the difference between dual and concurrent enrollment. The dual enrollment tends to take place on college campuses taught by college instructors, while concurrent enrollment is generally taught in the high school setting. And then just a brief overview of Wyoming's program, which will be covered later by the Community College Commission and the University of Wyoming. Wyoming Statute 21-2201 allows school districts to partner with the University of Wyoming and the community colleges to provide high school students with access to college-level courses through dual and concurrent enrollment. The statute establishes basic framework for eligibility, funding, accessibility, reporting, and credit recognition. This last budget session, the legislature established a dual enrollment district reimbursement program appropriating $10 million for that program. Also, this most recent session in the budget bill, the legislature appropriated $750,450 to the Community College Commission to provide non-public school students access to the dual enrollment programs because they do not fall within the district agreements. Going into the other states, we'll start with Washington. Washington offers 3 programs to high school students to earn post-secondary credit. First of which is the Running Start program, which is a dual enrollment model. Students are capped at 15 credits at a time, available to eligible students in public, private, and homeschool settings. These institutions are prohibited from charging fees, but students may be responsible for paying for their books and supplies. In their college and the high school program, that is a more concurrent enrollment setting. It is available to students in 9th through 12th grade at no cost to the students. However, access, availability, courses, and eligibility may vary by school district, similar to Wyoming's model. Also similar to Wyoming's model is the Career and Technical Education Credit, which is offered through agreements between districts and colleges. This program is designed to avoid cost to students, delivered within the high school or skill centers, and allows students to earn high school diplomas by completing an associate's degree. On to Minnesota's program. It encompasses both a dual and concurrent enrollment programs. It is largely available to those in 11th and 12th grades. However, there is some opportunity for 9th and 10th graders in the districts. The state covers most of the costs associated with this program, and districts are required to provide early and ongoing notice of program availability to students and their families. Districts must offer at least one advanced or dual credit course if more than 40 miles from post-secondary institutions. Students may have access through concurrent enrollment agreements similar to that of Wyoming. In Ohio, dual enrollment options are available for those in 9th through 12th grades. The state requires that all public schools and colleges participate in this program, and it is offered to students at no cost. Students are held to the same standards as college-age students, which serves as the primary limiting factor in who can participate. Compared to these models, Wyoming's framework provides local flexibility but lacks the same level of statewide consistency and targeted accessibility measures, as it is up to the respective school districts, community colleges, and the University of Wyoming to execute those dual credit agreements. And with that, I will stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Representative Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm looking at the website of dual enrollment, and it talks about, it does allow for online dual enrollment. But this is through the Wyoming Community College Commission page. Has there been any success or any attempts that you saw in your research about allowing for online dual enrollment with colleges outside of Wyoming?
Mr. Chairman, Representative Kelly, while I can't speak to Wyoming specifically, I'd have to defer to the Community College Commission on that. I do know that Washington provides the opportunity for schools to contract with colleges in Oregon and Idaho, and for students to be able to access dual and concurrent enrollment that way outside of the state of Washington.
Follow up. Further questions? Are you able to compare how the funding mechanisms work in some of these other states, like Washington State versus how it's done in Wyoming, for example?
Mr. Chairman, Washington funds their program on an FTE basis. So each student engaged in their dual and concurrent enrollment in their Running Start program, in particular, is funded at 1.4 FTEs. So I graduated from Sheridan High School, so there's 7 periods in a day. And then Washington caps it at 16 credit hours at any given time. So they'll fund up to a day and a half about worth of school. So you could be attending school for 4 periods and then be enrolled in 6 or 7 credit hours. And that'll be funded by the state.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I guess my next question is, so in Wyoming, currently, how does the community college get funded if a student is taking a dual enrollment program?
Mr. Chairman, I'd have to pass most of that question off to Matt, but I do know that the Community College Commission is working on implementing that $10 million reimbursement program.
Mr. Chairman, and I'll leave the specifics to the Community College Commission, and I know there's representatives from community colleges. But in terms of a high school student enrolling in a dual enrollment program where their school district has an agreement with their local community college or the University of Wyoming, that student is counted amongst the school district's ADM. That student is also counted amongst the college or the university's FTE. The tuition and fees that are charged are not the responsibility of the student. That is to be worked out through an agreement amongst the school district and the post-secondary institution. And so generally what happens is the college or the university charges tuition back to the school district, and the school district pays for that tuition through its funding received from the school foundation program. Additionally, any cost related to books and materials is also not the responsibility under the statutory program of the student. That is also to be covered by the post-secondary institutions or the school district. And again, all those fees are to be outlined within the memorandum of understanding and that agreement between the post-secondary institution and the school districts. Additionally, school districts, if they transport those students to a college or the university, that would be reimbursable. So I know that goes beyond how our community colleges receiving or the university receiving fees. Generally, it's worked out through that fee arrangement between the school district and community colleges or the university. The most recent legislative session allocates that $10 million annually then to reimburse each school district for those costs related to that agreement under that program. And then the budget bill appropriated that $750,000 directly to the Community College Commission for those students that aren't enrolled in a public school to pay for those costs related to the dual enrollment programs. So I think prospectively, there's more funding on the table to pay for those, or at least to ensure those additional costs are covered. But traditionally, the ADM funding through the School Foundation Program and that agreement that the post-secondary institutions and the school district have should generate some funding because those students are enrolled in the school district. They're generating funding from the School Foundation Program. So whatever that agreement is between the district and that post-secondary institution and whatever those fees are charged is worked out at that level. And as I indicated, the FTE that the college gets to count that student, there is a separate funding model for community colleges, and FTEs is one component of or variable within that formula that should generate a portion of funding. It's not the same thing as the School Foundation Program formula, but that FTE count is one variable that that the community college formula can generate some additional funding. So very high level. I'll leave it to the experts on their details.
All right, thank you for that. So follow up, are they being counted both as an ADM in the school district and as an FTE in the community college at the same time?
Mr. Chairman, yes, if it's in accordance with that post-secondary options program under statute. It doesn't and there's a provision in that statute says a student may enroll into a community college or university and take courses outside of that arrangement, and they would be responsible for those costs. But yes, under that program that we have in statute, it envisions both the school district counting them amongst their ADM and the college counting them, or the university counting them within their FTE.
Thank you. Chairwoman Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question either for Ashley or Dr. Wilmarth. I don't think I called you Dr. Wilmarth before, but apparently you are. Just a question on the districts that you know of in Wyoming that are doing this. Is there a cap on the number of hours that kids can take, or is it vary by district, or either one of you know that answer?
Yeah, Madam Chair, and I forgot one important piece on Chairman Andrews' question. There's also this BOCES revenue that school districts and community colleges assess related to their BOCES program, and up to a $500,000 may be assessed by a school board or a community college district. And that can be for providing these types of programs through an agreement, and they can create. So a BOCES is one or more school districts, or sorry, one school district and a community college district, or multiple school districts and a community college district. They each can assess up to a $500,000 without voter approval, and the community college district can assess a $500,000. So that generates additional revenue to help offset some of these costs. Additionally, school districts can assess up to an additional $2 million with voter approval. So a total of $2.5 million on a school district's assessed valuation may be assessed if the voters agree to vote those additional $2 million. In any event, the combination of this community college district mill levy and the school district mill levies cannot exceed, I believe, $2 million. So in the event that, or maybe it's $2.5 million, I'll double check. I have a memo on this from a few years ago, but that's another revenue source that can be tapped into for purposes of financing some of these costs. Now, to Chairman Schuler's question on the limitation of courses, the new law that appropriates the $10 million annual amount for this reimbursement program to school districts is subject to school districts in those community college districts not limiting the number of credit hours that a student may enroll in. I am aware that there are current arrangements where school districts and the community college districts limited the number of credit hours that a student may take. I anticipate districts and will change their rules on that in order to be eligible for that funding. So I think I hope that answers that question.
Mr. Chairman and Madam Chairman, if I might add a little bit to that. In 2010, there was a study done regarding the dual and concurrent enrollment program in Wyoming. And at that point, that study was tasked with studying like what it would look like to provide high school students an opportunity to earn at least 12 credit hours. So I do know that that's a number that's generally floating around when it comes to those caps, and that is probably where that originated from.
Another question this might be too specific to answer on the fly, but what is an FTE generally worth at a Wyoming community college? How much funding does an FTE get them in some sort of ballpark guesstimate answer, I guess?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know.
Okay.
Again,
That's all right. Thank you. Yeah. Further question from the committee? Seeing none. Thank you. I don't think we're supposed to have public comment between here and there. So why don't we talk to the Wyoming Community College Commission? Senator Office.
A quick question for Matt, and I can't remember whether we changed this. Isn't that still a fixed pie calculation though, so that the number of FTEs is a numerator towards a fixed pie denominator, effectively of dollars?
Mr. Chairman and Senator Office, I'm going to defer to the experts at the table. The community college system is the funding formula from the state side, that allocation model. You're right, it is a fixed pie, but there is also an analysis on your local revenue and how much your local mill levies generate. But there's also a component of the number of completers as well. So it's just not a straight FTE generation and allocation. There's a few more components that change all those variables and how that allocation is completed.
Great, thanks.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Laurel Ballard with the Wyoming Community College Commission. I'm the executive director, and I have phoned a few friends, as you may see. So I'm going to have them do introductions before we get started.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Joe Schaefer. I work for Laramie County Community College.
Good afternoon, members of the committee, Mr. Chairman. My name is Blake Paintner, and I work for Laramie County Community College.
And Mr. Chairman, online, we also have, I think I've seen him up there before, but we have Davis Jenkins from the Community College Research Center as well to be able to talk about some of what we're seeing nationally on dual and concurrent enrollment.
Yep. And good afternoon, Chairman and committee members. My name is Matt Griswold. I'm the Vice Provost for Online and Continuing Education at the University of Wyoming. Good to meet you all.
So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am excited to get to talk about this today. And the questions you've been asking have nothing to do with what I put in my memo, so this will be fun today. So what I actually want to take a second before we dive into some of these, just kind of give you an overview of what's happening in dual and concurrent enrollment. So Ashley was right. There is the 2010 statute that required community colleges to offer 12 credit hours to 11th and 12th graders. There's MOUs that kind of dictate how all of that works between the colleges and their associated school districts and their regions. And then so they have that piece. We also have areas in the state that have chosen to fund the BOCES and BOCHES, right? So as well, just be clear, not all communities have that. So that's where some BOCES and BOCHES cap how much, but they can do more than 12. Some in areas like in Southeast Wyoming and Northwest Wyoming, they have very few, if any, BOCES or BOCHES. And so then they're closer to that cap of 12 prior to the legislation that passed earlier this year. So just kind of so you know that. I wanted to talk a little bit too about the data around dual and concurrent enrollment. Just kind of thinking about some recent data that we have. So we have been looking at, we have been required in the past to report out annually on the post-secondary options and opportunity. I don't remember what it's called. We call it the PAP report. It's the dual and concurrent report from the state that we have to provide back to you every year. So just kind of looking at some of the things that came from that this year on the most recent one that we have. When we look at concurrent enrollment, we see almost double the amount of concurrent enrollment than we see in dual enrollment, right? So thinking about concurrent enrollment, that's the high school teachers that are teaching the college level courses inside the high school versus the dual enrollment where they're taking either online classes or going to the college and taking the post-secondary classes. When you turn that into hours, credit hours attempted and credit hours completed, we start looking at the number of credit hours attempted at almost 47,000 concurrent enrollment credits attempted this year, or the 24-25 school year, and for concurrent enrollment, and closer to 3,200 for the dual enrollment number of hours. So to kind of give you a perspective number of classes that they're taking. When we look at the completion rates, the concurrent enrollment completion.
Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Dr. Ballard, you said 47,000. Was it
Yes, Mr.
47,000 and 3,200?
Sorry, 32,000.
32,000. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. No
My
worries.
apologies.
I knew one of those had to be wrong. Thank you.
So thank you. The completion rate for concurrent enrollment is around 93.5%. The dual enrollment completion rate is around 87%. And when we look at it, right, a large chunk of the dual enrollment is actually, a lot of it is being done online. So, because, right, we have lots of school districts that really are too far away to reasonably take kids back and forth to do dual enrollment classes at the colleges. So with that, we also I put together for you, so in the stuff that was handed to you today, you should see a graphic that looks like this from our statewide longitudinal education data system. You'll hear it lovingly called SLEDS. It kind of takes a look a little bit at like what happened with some of our students in the class of 2024 to kind of look at the high school graduating class of 2024 to look at kind of what they look like when they graduated high school. So we see, if you look at that, you can see that 67% of our students were earning dual and concurrent credits. So, about 2/3 of our students are actually earning at least some credits for through dual and concurrent. The average number of the average number of credits that they took were 13.6. And if you look at the top classes that they're taking, they're really the general eds, right? So English comp, college algebra, American and Wyoming government, those kinds of things. And then under that, we kind of did some analysis about like, what does it look like for students when they graduate, like who goes on to post-secondary, who doesn't? And you can see that students that partake in the dual and concurrent enrollment are twice as likely to go on to post-secondary education than students that only take high school classes. In this class, we had 44 students across the state that had earned associate's degrees while they were in high school. And I will tell you this year, one college alone has about that many, one of our colleges. So, I mean, that's we're definitely seeing, I mean, it's the one that has the most, but we do have colleges that are graduating students with both their high school degree and their associate's degree at the same time. And then if I look at that cohort of 44 students, 90% of them go on to post-secondary, continue on their post-secondary journey. When I look at a little bit below that, then we looked at how do these students do in persisting a little bit and graduating in college. And so if we look at the community college associate's degree, we're now looking at the high school graduation class of 2022, looking at their 3-year graduation outcomes. And you can see like the number of students, the difference in the number of students, right? We had 380 students in the high school courses that only took high school courses versus almost 1,200 students that were in the dual and concurrent enrollment classes. When we look at years to graduation, you can kind of look at that, but our total number of graduates were 495 with a graduation rate of within 2 years. Our median graduation rate is 2 years for both of them. But when I look at the percent that graduated, 21% graduated that only had a high school diploma versus the 42% that graduated with prior dual enrollment experience. We did the same analysis for UW, but looked at a 6-year graduation rate. So we're looking at the class of 2019 instead of the class of 22. And you can see their numbers, right? They had 128 students that enrolled in the University of Wyoming, and those that didn't have dual and concurrent, and 631 that did. And you can look and see, right, the median years to graduation are 4.5 for students that had just taken high school classes and 4 years for the students that had taken the dual and concurrent enrollment. But there you'll see, again, 42% graduation rate versus a 68% graduation for the students that took dual and concurrent enrollment. So I just kind of wanted to again give you that picture, right? And one of the things that we wanted to talk to you about today, right, is that with the legislation that you passed, you've really did some amazing work in opening doors for students that we're really excited to see, right? We see interest, we see students going through it. It opened it up, not that 9th and 10th graders couldn't take it before, but the legislation didn't require that. It required 11th and 12th graders. So now we're going down to 9th graders. And as we think about that, we really have to be, I think, thoughtful about what we do with these students, right? We're seeing more students. Well, you expect to see some more students. I don't know if we'll see a huge influx of new students because students could already take classes. We will just start seeing them take them starting younger, most likely. But we do expect to see some increase in the numbers of credits that are being taken, especially in areas where they had to cap the number of courses that they had. As we've been going through it and kind of talking about it, we're thinking about the fact that when you talk about a 9th grader taking dual enrollment classes, that's their college transcript, right? The one that follows them everywhere they go. They can't say, I don't want this class not to count if I didn't do well. And you can ask my youngest, who is trying to get a C off her transcript right now, that she can't get off, right? Like, because she doesn't want the C to reduce her opportunities actually within the Army from that. And so we have to be we are talking about being really thoughtful about how do we advise students and families and parents about the implications of what we're talking about. Because we've opened, with the doors that you've opened, you've made college, right, a reality for a lot of students that may not have been able to have a lot of college classes. And so being able to really spend some time thinking about, like, what's the return on investment for parents and students and for the legislature and colleges for what we're doing. And so as we're thinking about this, right, like, we've been talking about, there's been advising going on, but really thinking about intensive advising and directed advising that connects college career thoughts and putting college and career readiness and interests for our early high school students, very much in alignment with where the state board, right, and others are going with some of the work that they've been doing. So doing that, and then connecting these students with pathways, right? So we have seen a lot of students that have taken courses and just kind of the random courses and they're like, I like to take this one and I want to take this one. And they take 20, 30, 40, 60 credits. And then they go on and they hit the University of Wyoming or some of our community colleges and they decide what pathway they really want to take or what they want to major in. And a lot of credits then turn into elective credits. And so then it doesn't apply. Learning is great for the purposes of learning, but if you're trying to really connect it to what our workforce needs are and things like that, there's a lot of opportunity, I think, in here to think about that, which I think is going to require something that will necessitate greater collaboration from our colleges and our K-12 school districts on what that would really need to look like, right? Because I don't expect our high school counselors to know all the different programs that our colleges are offering and what are the right courses and the pathways and things like that to take. But it's certainly, there are also the high schools, right, are the ones often supporting some of these students as well. And so they too need to know, right, how to help and support these students. So we expect we're thinking that we're going to need, as a state, we're going to need to think about how we are effectively working with these high school students and their families. The other thing that we have seen is students that take a lot of credits, especially that end up being elective credits, don't always understand the financial aid and how it works. And when you start taking a lot of, if you start taking a lot of classes early and not knowing what you're doing, it can impact their, like you can only take so much before financial aid runs out, right? And so as you start thinking about that, just to be thoughtful, helping parents understand that, because I know I did not understand that when my kids were in high school. Not that it impacted me, but my kids weren't taking that many classes. But I mean, that's a reality for some students, and then it gets them into trouble when they're trying to finish up their bachelor's and they've run out of some of the like federal financial aid and some of those opportunities and things like that. So with that, I am going to kind of wrap up what I've got so that I'm not leaving you here all afternoon. I'm actually going to turn it over to Mr. Jenkins that's online to talk about what they're seeing nationally as best practices as you kind of start scaling out these dual enrollment programs that are much more extensive in scope.
Thanks, Laurel. Can you hear me? Right on. So, nice to be with you. Davis Jenkins from the Community College Research Center, which is at Teachers College, Columbia University in New York City. We 30 years old, study community colleges across the country. And again, want to echo Laurel that this investment you're making in dual enrollment is really expanding opportunity. And you see from these data that, you know, students who participate in dual enrollment are more likely to continue their education after high school and complete degrees than students who don't participate. That's consistent with what we see in most states across the country. However, there's lots of variation across partnerships, dual enrollment partnerships in their outcomes. And to some extent, dual enrollment in many states serves students who are already going to college and hasn't expanded opportunity. And so it really depends how these programs are organized. So the question is, how can you build on the investment you're making to make sure, how can you approach dual and concurrent enrollment so that the state is getting the greatest return on investment? Dual enrollment has grown across the country. It's now 2.8 million students high school students taking dual and concurrent courses. Through 70% of that nationally is through community colleges, the other 30% through four-year institutions. It's wildly popular. But as Laura was saying, much of it is still organized around discrete courses rather than a coherent pathways. And as Laurel said, students can accumulate credits, but those credits don't always apply toward a credential in a field that they're interested in. So that can be problematic. And Laurel said this is commonly known as random acts of dual enrollment. So the goal should be not simply to help students earn college credit, but begin the process of exploring career and academic interests, and begin in high school to not just take college credits, but begin to move from exploration to preparation for careers. And that's been the focus of our research at Community College Research Center for at least the last 10 years on how community colleges in particular can work with schools to have this more purposeful dual enrollment that we call dual enrollment pathways, or DEEP. But the general idea is, to think of dual enrollment not just as a collection of college courses, but as an on-ramp to career-connected post-secondary education. And the strongest programs, that is the programs that have the best outcomes, intentionally recruit students who may not see themselves as college bound. They connect coursework to a clear college pathway, either through a community college or through the university in a particular field of interest, not just, general college credits. Very importantly, they provide advising and educational planning assistance to high school students from the college, not just rely on high school counselors to do that. And they offer strong academic supports because these are college courses and they should be taught at a level of rigor of the college level if they're really going to be effective and, prepare the students for post-secondary education. And so these are high school students and we've got to provide a lot of support for them. So the big opportunity in Wyoming and nationally is to use dual enrollment to think about connecting high school career technical students, but students generally to career-connected post-secondary pathways in high-demand fields, whether that be through Community College Associate of Arts program or through University of Wyoming, bachelor's programs in high opportunity fields. As Laura was saying, most of this dual enrollment in Wyoming and nationally is in general education courses for a bachelor's degree. That's important, but we're missing this opportunity to help students, especially those who weren't otherwise planning to go to college, really think about career pathways. And increasingly, young people need substantive post-secondary education and training after high school. Most jobs that in Wyoming and elsewhere that pay a living wage, and the vast majority that pay a family sustaining wage, are held by people who have a bachelor's and higher. But of course, there are many jobs in Wyoming and elsewhere, good jobs that require less than a bachelor's, but substantial skill training. And increasingly, the kind of skill training you get in high school through high school CTE is enough to get your foot in the door, but not to advance to the best paying career path jobs. We were recently in Odessa, Texas, in the oil fields, West Texas, talking with colleges and schools and employers. And the employers are saying, look, in the oil fields, you can get a great job coming out of high school with some skills training, but they're moving heavily to automated welding, drone inspection. Everything's got AI in it. And these students, really to move up, they're going to need at least what's called a technical diploma or an applied associate degree. And of course, these are great jobs in the oil fields and extractive industries, but they're hard jobs, and in the trades, very hard jobs. And to move up to technical management and technical sales in these fields, you're going to need at least an applied associate or a bachelor's. So this is an opportunity the implication for Wyoming is, look, this investment, you're already investing and seeing good outcomes, but I would encourage you guys to think about, to maximize the return, think about 3 priorities. The first is ensure, and there are examples from other states we can discuss, ensure that dual enrollment courses are connected to clear career outcomes, either through career technical education provided by a community college or a trade school, or bachelor's degrees from the university in specific fields. Students should be able, and their families should be able to see how their courses they take in high school connect to an Associate of Applied Science or a bachelor's pathway or an apprentice pathway in a career field that's of interest to them. And so the community colleges and University of Wyoming in particular should be mapping their programs in these different fields down into the offerings. Maps are important, but especially for students from families who, don't have college educations, who would be the first in their families to pursue post-secondary education. Our research and others shows that these students really need advising, and the advising can't come from the high school counselors alone. Colleges need to provide that counseling in conjunction, obviously, with the high school counselors, because to make sure that what's offered fits in the student's high school completion plan, which is really important. But it's up to us in higher education to really provide that advising. And we're seeing big returns for colleges. And again, we're studied rural states and colleges and partnerships as well in embedding college advisors, working with the high school counselors to advise students, even beginning and their parents, even beginning in middle school, because this pathway you're creating through dual enrollment is really the best. It's a debt-free path to a good job, and really potentially the best free college program there is. But parents and students, especially from first generation families, need to help seeing that. But that requires some investment, not just in making the cost lower, free for students and families, which is important, but the colleges have resources to support in providing that advising for students. So that's number two. Number three, really use this as a way to dual enrollment as a way to expand opportunity. The biggest return economically to the state and to families and communities will come from enabling students who wouldn't otherwise go to college to get excited about a path and get on an efficient path to a community college applied associate degree, to a bachelor's degree at University of Wyoming, to trade school or apprenticeship while they're in high school, and to get a post-secondary credential of value by the time they're 25. The research is really definitive. That's a huge return for the state, but most importantly, it really puts students on an important career trajectory. So in conclusion, the opportunity here is to build on the great work you've already done, but make it more intentional, connect students to community college and university degrees. And, there's some discussion about earning associate degrees. What we find is more efficient for states is maybe having students, take from 6 to 15 credits, but with advising from colleges and universities on a map to use these courses as an opportunity to explore interest, but also to get some of these foundation courses. When you design it in this more purposeful way, it becomes more than just an acceleration strategy, which it already is, but it really becomes a pipeline for the state to build educational attainment, workforce talent, and economic opportunity. So we've been working with Laramie County Community College is one of a small number of colleges that we in the Aspen Institute have been working on to rethink how they're organizing their programs generally to make sure that all of their programs either enable students to get a living wage job directly or a bachelor's degree, whether through the Laramie or through the university, that will enable them to get to a good job. And a key piece of this is sort of building the pathways or the on-ramps, if you will, to these post-secondary pathways after high school for students. And I'll turn it over to Joe, unless there are any questions, talk about what this looks like on the ground in Laramie County.
All right, thank you. Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, I want to push back against a little of what we just heard and get his comments on it. It seems to me it's all very fine in a number of cases to plan out a career path and for the advisement to concentrate on that. But let's think for a minute about the level of maturity in the students that we're dealing with. High school age kids, I think they often don't really know what kind of a career path is going to appeal to them. And I know at that age, I didn't know myself. I changed a number of times in the course of going through college. I think a lot of students are going to be in that boat where the kind of advisement they need is what are the general education type of courses, introductory courses that'll give us a good sample so that we can make that judgment as to which we're going into or that give us the knowledge base that can be used in any number of careers. And I think we're making a big mistake if we concentrate everything on let's put together for a junior or a senior in high school, a program that's going to lead them to a definite outcome in the job world. Some of the students, many of them will need that, but many will not because they'll get some education in something and they'll say, that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I've seen it in my own relatives in this program. When I started down the nursing course and got some work experience, and decided they didn't want to be a nurse. Okay, fine. But you need to have some understanding that a lot of the kids here, not all of them, but a lot of them need to have the basic good education. And the dual and concurrent gives them something to go beyond what the high school is offering. And I think it's very valuable in that respect. But I think if you try to tie everything down to advising for a job and a career, it isn't going to work for a lot of the students. And I'd like to hear the contrary opinion.
I agree entirely.
Mr. Jenkins.
Yeah, I agree entirely. It's a good point. We're not trying to get students on a particular career pathway in high school, but a lot of research has shown the advantage of having students begin the exploration process. That's what we're talking about here, which involves a number of things. The advising is not to select, well, you're going to be in healthcare or a nurse, for your career, but it's to begin to think about what you're interested in. And then, yes, to take courses, both career technical and general education courses, with a view to seeing, am I good at this? Taking anatomy and physiology or bio or even a liberal arts course in high school can be part of that exploration. Networking is also important, meeting people at the college who you wouldn't otherwise meet. And, hopefully through work-based learning in school to connect with people you wouldn't otherwise meet. And the plan is not a plan for life, but it's a plan to give students direction. We found that just relying on general education courses to provide that career advice is not enough. It has to be, students need to be helped to see how the general education fits with a broader career trajectory. So we're in agreement that it shouldn't be career specific, but all of these ideas about engaging students in what are they interested in? Do you like working with people? Do you like working with numbers? Do you like working with your hands, et cetera? Trying out some things, both in high school courses and dual enrollment, getting some advising. There's good research that suggests that it helps students begin this exploration process, taking a challenging course in a field of study that you find you might be good at, and then very importantly, getting at least a preliminary plan to give you a sense of direction, put students, including students coming out of high school, in a much better trajectory. The world is changing so fast. All these fields are changing. What we want to do is get students as early as possible into jobs that are where employers are paying for your learning. And those, what I'm saying, those increasingly require post-secondary education, even in the technical trades fields.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just quick response to Senator Scott. Actually, I appreciate the dialogue, and I think Davis did a nice job of sort of sharing the agreement and the common ground that we stand on. Here's a couple of things I would encourage us all to keep in mind. The first is the notion of exploration with purpose, and I think that's what Davis is getting at. The second is informed choice. Certainly none of us will argue that college students change their minds in programs. Many adults change their minds in careers. And so the specific definitive career that they may have or will have is hard for even individuals who are 23 at the college to sometime determine. What we know is these students have to make choices about the courses they take, about what they might do as they finish high school, and about what they might do after high school. And the challenge, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the LCCC Accelerate program, the challenge is how they're making those choices and how we've structured curriculum to allow them to explore with purpose. For many students, especially first generation students, their world of opportunity is limited to what they've seen immediately around them. So they're making choices already limited. In fact, in some ways, the policy structures we've put in place create limits on what they may choose. And I oftentimes talk about the fact that when you transition from 8th grade to 9th grade, in many ways, your course selections that happen in a 10, 20-minute conversation with a counselor and assistant principal are determining whether I'm a Hathaway curriculum student or not, whether I'm college going or not. So we are actually creating environments where students sometimes are making ill-equipped and uninformed choices. So the notion here is how do we help them make informed choice and explore with purpose, but still keeping opportunity open, knowing that the world's going to change and their interests may change.
Further questions from the committee? Please go ahead. Or anyone else on the panel presenting?
We'll see if that gets up there. Perfect. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, again, my name is Joe Schaefer. I'm the president, Laramie County Community College. With me today is Blake Paintner, who serves as our director of college and career transitions. And we want to talk a little bit about a proof of concept, a pilot program that we're essentially running at LCCC to test a lot of the research on the ground in Wyoming. You should have a hard copy of the presentation there. We'll walk through some slides, and Blake and I are going to tag team this a little bit. But we've had the good fortune of working closely with the Community College Research Center, Davis and his colleagues, and the work that they're doing, really the definitive experts on educational outcomes and redesign and the work of the community colleges, I think. And one of the areas that we've been looking at is just what we're seeing nationally. And it's this rampant growth in dual and concurrent enrollment. And so for us, again, concurrent in the high school, dual is taught by a college faculty, either online or on campus. And it's growing substantially. This is some of CCRC's work and visualization. You could see since the pandemic, growth in dual and concurrent enrollment in Wyoming is almost 30%. It is an area that we continue to see significant growth. When you look at the proportion of our undergraduate enrollments in Wyoming, you can see how significant those are. One college where it's 57% of the undergraduate enrollment are students who are 17 years age or younger. Across the state, it's about 26%. It is a large portion of our student enrollment, and this is something that's occurring across the nation. But we've discovered really three things that are going on, and you heard Davis and Dr. Ballard talk about this a little bit. The first is what we're seeing is students are earning college credits in high school at increasing rates. Many of those credits are being chosen and taken not with any type of purpose. So one of the challenges we see when students even come through high school, graduate, and end up at the university, and we hear this issue of transfer. I've said that oftentimes we think about the issue and say it's the university won't take the courses or they won't. What it is that we have courses on a transcript that don't ultimately apply to the credential or the program that the student is after. So that's the one thing. Are those credits that we're all paying for, that students are working towards beyond the intrinsic value of education, are they actually helping advance that student in the way they want? What we see is they amass a significant number of credits that are truly just treated as electives. That's the first one. The second piece I'd point out is we have students earning college credits in high school that never go to college. You can see on the infographic from Dr. Ballard, it's 25% of our high school students who earn college credit in high school never actually go to college. So there's an opportunity for growth there. And then the last piece that we've really focused on and discovered is the fact that there is great disparity or inequity in participation in dual enrollment specifically. Concurrent's getting better. But when we look just at Laramie County School District number 1 and looked at it by our schools, we saw great disparity in the enrollment in dual enrollment by school. Central High School and East, we've been doing a lot of work with, have actually come up substantially. But when we look at South and then Triumph, the alternative school, much lower rates of participation. And when you overlay poverty rates with those schools and those districts, it's not surprising what you see is that the more impoverished schools and students come from low income or first generation backgrounds are not participating in dual enrollment at the same rates as others. And this is the same when we compare Whiting with Laramie High. We see this over and over that the actual access to participation is not equitable. And so what you see in some ways is we're paying for college courses for students who are already probably going to go to college, could probably afford to go to college anyways. And so that's one of the issues that we're trying to tackle. So dual enrollment is wonderful. You heard Dr. Jenkins talk about the great benefits of dual and concurrent enrollment. Students who take it are more likely to graduate high school, more likely to matriculate to college. When they go to college, they earn higher GPAs, and they're more likely to complete. It is incredibly powerful if it's done with purpose to do that. And so there are a lot of benefits, but we need to think about how we actually structure from a policy and incentive based this programming to make sure that it yields the ROI to the states and to the families. So as I said, we've got challenges with the random credit accumulation, the uneven access between schools and populations. It's not just within schools, but the ability based on the teachers at a K-12 school, the proximity to a college, all create barriers, and there's uneven access, especially in Wyoming and other rural states, with who can actually get to dual enrollment and who can't. We could talk at length about the limited capacity within our high school counseling, as counseling has become truly more counseling in high school. With too few of those folks, the old days of guidance counseling or the work that you did when you did career exploration, there's just not the capacity or the time to do it. And as you heard Davis say, that's really something that colleges need to be providing. There are significant technology barriers between the two, and especially with low-income families. So those students that have an iPad that has to go in to the school and don't have a laptop to do dual enrollment online, especially over the summer, how do they make some of those transitions? And then do we have similar systems? Do they know how to navigate systems? Those are challenges. And then I think the big one for us is really thinking about first generation and low income students who simply don't see college as attainable, especially if in their 8th grade, course selection for their freshman year, they say, that's just not for me, so I'm not going to do a success curriculum. I'm going to go this track. So we know that there's this perceived or mental barrier that exists. And so we started working with our school districts, and Laramie County 1 was the first that said, okay, let's try a proof of concept. And I'll be completely honest with you. We're trying to do this to figure out how we can do it at LCCC, but we want the state to learn from this, and hopefully we create a policy environment and an incentive environment, a financial environment that actually leads to more purpose behind the way we do that. And so that's, planting a seed for what our ask may be of you as you think about this. That's really what we want. But essentially, we agreed to the fact that we wanted to close those gaps in participation, because we knew if we did that, we could increase high school graduation rates, especially of those low-income students. If we increase high school graduation rates, we should be able to increase college-going rates, and then completion rates, and more specifically, can we save time for the students and families in the state by accelerating their path to a college credential or to a degree? which led us to this notion of LCCC Accelerate. And Accelerate is, I call it a proof of concept. So we're testing it because we want to demonstrate that this can work if structured right. And our hypothesis is pretty simple. If we provide high school-based orientation, career exploration early on, and comprehensive academic planning, and then align that with purposeful utilization of dual and concurrent enrollment with financial incentives to say they can afford it, we think we can increase high school graduation rates, college going rates, and ultimately college completion rates more expeditiously and more financially viable. And so we went to work, actually went out, 3 of our big funders are on here right now, the John P. Elbogen Foundation, the Sturm Family Foundation, and Meta, and said, we need to try this. We've got to find a way to do it. We've been able to raise about $800,000 to run this pilot program, this proof of concept. We will still need to raise about another $400,000 over its duration. But we said, we'll work with you to put some dollars behind this and actually prove that it works. And now I'm going to shift over to Ms. Paintner, who's going to talk you through a little bit more about the program and then give you some early outcomes.
Thank you, Dr. Schaefer. As he shared, LCCC Accelerate is in its first year. It's a proof of concept in a pilot program. And when we partnered with LCSD1, we wanted to be intentional about who we were working with. And so this first year, we told LCSD1, we want to work with 100 sophomore students and priority given to first generation and or low income students. Through the Accelerate program, we wanted students to choose one of our 8 pathways. They would choose a pathway while working with our LCCC Accelerate advisor, do career exploration, and ultimately create an individualized academic plan that's tied to that pathway or to their career goals. I believe there is a copy of an on-ramp in front of you as well. That's one of our on-ramps for South High School in the Trades and Technical Studies area. We have 8 different on-ramps for each of our high schools, just because some of the offerings concurrently are different at each high school. So that's kind of a view of what those on-ramps look like. For students who are accepted into the Accelerate program, this is kind of a snapshot of what their student journey looks like. They apply during their sophomore year, at the beginning of their sophomore year, and really start off with career exploration and intentional advising with our dedicated Accelerate advisor. Their sophomore year is really just to prepare them, do that exploration before they start taking that college coursework. During their junior and senior year is when they will take those classes on those on-ramps, both concurrent enrollment and dual enrollment coursework. Then after their senior year, based on those courses that they took, they've met their high school graduation requirements, and through the Accelerate program, there's a 1-year scholarship to complete the remainder of their courses or their coursework at LCCC. And so that's being funded by the donors that Dr. Schaefer mentioned. Once they complete that associate's degree after 1 year, hopefully they either transfer to a 4-year school or they have the credentials needed to go right out into the workforce. So really, what makes Accelerate different? You've heard a lot about kind of what traditional dual enrollment looks like. There's a lot of individual course taking. There's limited advising on both the college side and the high school counselor side. Lots of credit accumulation that may not necessarily be leading to a degree. Oftentimes, students are just self-selecting courses. They may think, oh, I want to take this business course and a healthcare course and maybe an English course. And so it's a lot of student self-navigation in traditional dual enrollment. You saw some of the graphics about the uneven access and really kind of transactional. So what we're doing with LCCC Accelerate, or what makes it different, is they really have more in-depth program and career exploration. They have that intentional course selection with a dedicated advisor for this cohort of students. That Accelerate advisor also works very closely with the high school counseling staff as well, just to ensure that those students are meeting those high school graduation requirements. The students during their sophomore year participate in multiple workshops throughout the year to better prepare them for taking college level courses. What we don't want to have happen is a student sign up for this program or any course and not feel successful or not complete successfully. So during their sophomore year, they're doing workshops related to time management and study skills and email communication with their college instructors. So lots of ways just to better prepare themselves for when they take those college classes. So Accelerate is also different because at LCCC, we don't have the BOCES or the BOCHES. And so we do have that limit of the 12 credits or 4 classes. And so originally we were prioritizing concurrent enrollment offerings first, and then going over to dual because of that limit of dual enrollment courses. But with Accelerate, we had that funding to make it unlimited for these students, but unlimited, purposeful, aligned dual enrollment. Then the other piece that made Accelerate different than the rest of our dual enrollment and concurrent enrollment students and those offerings is that 1-year tuition and fees scholarship to LCCC after they complete high school. Some of the data from this first year's cohort, as I mentioned a couple slides ago, we hope to have 100 students. We ended up having 91 students in our first cohort. Students did have to apply to this program. We reviewed their transcripts. It was a joint application review with LCCC and with the high school counseling staff. And we selected students that we thought would be successful in this program. Over half of the students are low income, and about 24% of the students indicated that they are also first generation. One of the really neat things that we've seen so far with this cohort is they're getting a head start on their path. As I mentioned, with this program, students don't have to start taking classes until their junior year. But through those workshops, through that individualized support with their Accelerate advisor, they feel confident to start taking classes now. There were 5 of our Accelerate students that opted to take a class during the spring semester of their sophomore year. All 5 of those students passed their classes with A's and B's, which was super exciting to see that data come through last week. And then 47 of those students were enrolled in concurrent courses there at the high school this spring. And then just this past week, our summer session started, and 56 of our students are enrolled in a dual enrollment summer course. These were just some powerful student statements that we wanted to share with you. They are on your slides, but I think it's really neat to hear that the students are sharing with us what this program means to them and what it can do for them in the future. I think one of the favorite lines I have in here is this program, this very last one, this program offers more than just academic credit, it offers direction. And that's really what we're hoping to provide this group of students. Some of the early outcomes and indicators is really just a strong student demand and application interest. We were pleased with our cohort this first year. Again, students are enrolling in classes much earlier than required. When they do that, we'll alter their academic plan so that they still have a tailored plan that will lead them to that credential. Increased engagement with career exploration opportunities that we've provided to them. They're connecting with college instructors, college staff earlier and frequently. They're asking informed questions. They want to know more about what this program, what this path will lead to, and what is waiting for them once they complete. And then they have a cohort. They have a community of people that are taking similar classes that they can study with, and they are seeing folks often that for these workshops that they can then build that cohort the next couple years. Some of the scalability considerations when we're growing this program is what's supporting it is our existing concurrent enrollment infrastructure. That's been well. It's strong because of our K-12 partnerships. as we've learned and talked about, and as you all know, the new state dual enrollment legislation will really help scale this program. When we developed this program over a year ago, at that point, we were still operating under the kind of the constraints that we had financially at that point. This cohort-based advising model has done really well. Those workshops and really just the individualized attention that these students are receiving. And then those on-ramps or pathway maps are really beneficial for these students to see what they will ultimately get. What's going to require some additional investment is more dedicated advising capacity. We have one Accelerate advisor right now for this group of 100 students, and she's been busy. She's in the schools every week. She's going to 3 different schools every week and meeting with students, and students are coming out to LCCC to meet with her. And so once we scale this, we'll need more advising capacity. She's great, but she can't do it all for all of our students. Additional scholarship, financial support, our student support workshops, further developing those and enhancing those as we've gotten feedback from students. And then as Dr. Schaefer shared too, technology and system navigation and just physical support for that.
Yeah, thank you, Blake. Maybe I'll just wrap up and talk a little bit about why this is important. As you heard, we have a neat opportunity. We've talked a lot about in the state economic opportunity, economic development and growth, jobs, retaining our youth, and really creating a pathway. And we still, I believe that higher education is one of the best paths to that for the state and for the individual. We've got a population of students that are engaging with us at increasing rates. We need to find the best way to ensure that they succeed in their goals, and more importantly, that they also return to the state's interests of a talented workforce that's ready to drive our economy and serve in our communities. And so this work is important. And as I said, we planted that seed. This pilot will serve 300 students maximum. We're going to take 3 cohorts in and work with them over 5 years. If they do their part and they do the exploration, they use the on-ramps, they could earn up to 30 credits by the time they graduate high school. If they graduate high school, what we've committed to them is you can come finish your credential with us, and we'll underwrite the tuition and fees for 1 year. And we're specifically targeting that first generation low income. If they complete more of the traditional on-ramp that leads to either our general education framework or the university studies program, they get to the university, that's great as well. But we're talking 300 students, and LCCC served 1,000 dual enrollment students just last year, and that's likely to grow. And if you look across the state, you can multiply that. So making the investments in advising, curriculum alignment, structure, technology isn't going to be most affordable. It's a whole lot easier to just keep doing what we're doing. As Ms. Paintner said, for us, the changes in the K-12 recalibration bill that allocated that $10 million per year of dual enrollment, that's a game changer for LCCC. We were purposefully pushing back on growth in dual enrollment because every student we added actually ended up costing money because there wasn't a revenue stream. And if you're in a community with a BOCES or a BOCES, there is additional revenue to offset that. But your change there actually created the opportunity for us to think about scaling Accelerate earlier than we were anticipating. So our appreciation and kudos to you for that. But at the end of the day, Wyoming can lead if we think about how we add purpose and structure on policy and incentives for dual enrollment. And we think that Accelerate will at least show a foundation in which we can build that on. So with that, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Chairwoman Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question I started to answer a little bit on the Accelerated Advisor. I assumed you had more than one when you were talking about it. So first of all, how did you find this person? Was it someone that was a counselor at the college? And then how did this all transpire for them being able to get into the schools and start working with them?
Thank you for the question, Senator. We do have just the one Accelerate advisor right now. She actually came from the K-12 system, so she had that background. And really, we've had a great relationship with our local high schools, even before Accelerate. was created. And so in terms of her getting in access into the high schools, communicating with students and the counselors, we had that strong relationship built already. And so she was able to just kind of jump on that and expand on what we had already been doing.
Sounds like a great program. Good luck with it.
Thank you.
Further questions or anyone on the panel? All right, I have a question. How much does it cost to have, if there was a student enrolled, say full-time pursuing an associate's degree in a community college in LCCC, what does it cost you to provide that program?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, that is a great question. There's always caveats with that. So the educational cost per full-time student, I believe at LCCC is about $11,000 or $12,000 per student. And that's a general total expenditures, and then divide that by our full-time equivalencies. But if you want to get a use, it's about $12,000. And that will vary somewhat based on the educational institution, the college size, but that's about what it is. For us, about 42% of that cost is actually borne through state support versus local revenue or tuition revenue.
All right, thank you. Is there currently opportunity for if someone were at 11th grade were to say, okay, I'm no longer going back to the high school, I'm going to go full-time on campus to LCCC and pursue an associate's degree. Could they do that now?
Mr. Chairman, it's a good question. And again, with caveats to that, assuming an 11th grader, and what we see is really closer towards the end of their junior year, if a student has satisfied the entirety of their high school graduation requirements, they could essentially complete their senior year entirely enrolled at a community college. Some do that, and we're seeing an increased number of those who are earning both a high school diploma and an associate degree when they graduate. With that, it gets very nuanced because they could essentially complete requirements for high school, but if they're participating in collegiate or high school athletics, they have to be enrolled in so many times. And so there's an effort for dual enrolled courses versus what we call Jumpstart, which is just early college. But yes, theoretically, a student could satisfy the entirety of their high school requirements and then finish their senior year with us. What we see more often is they satisfy the majority, or if not all, of the high school requirements, and they have elective courses they want to continue to enroll in, but want to stay enrolled in the high school for athletics or to stay in school and do that. And then that's where we see a lot of the elective choice around dual enrollment and can accelerate them. So our Accelerate program, we want students to have the opportunity to complete up to 34 credits. The tech and trades pathway will be in the high 27s, but gives you an idea of kind of what that overlap could be in the junior and senior year.
All right, thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we'll turn it over to.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you.
Please go ahead.
Chairman Andrew, Chairman Schuler, committee members. I just wanted to supplement what's been mentioned by the community colleges and Laramie Community College as well. It's heartening to hear the conversation around pathways related to dual and concurrent enrollment. I think a good number of states have started to expand them aside from those that you've heard of from Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, where they have plans, and those plans have been in place for quite a bit of time. More commonly, states offer dual and concurrent enrollment, and students cherry pick courses that they think would be intriguing to them, or they overlap with their high school requirements without necessarily a plan for what they're going to do with those credits. So talking about further advising for students, counseling for students, tutoring for students, and putting an infrastructure around it is really putting those dollars that you release to the state to good use on top of taking advantage of the additional credits now students will be able to take across the state. So you may be aware UW is a very small contributor to either concurrent or dual enrollment. I think right now in 2024, our contribution to headcount was 0.6% of all headcount in concurrent enrollment, 0.7% in credit hour production. I think the additional dollars that you've released and the conversation around pathways Well, there are certain pathways that UW provides that currently aren't available to those students. So where UW would like to step in and contribute is when pathways are aligned with those 4-year degree tracks, that we provide those tracks and we provide that coursework so students are able to choose and decide on those career pathways earlier in their high school career, where right now they don't have those opportunities. So just to state to all of you that UW is willing to engage further in the dual enrollment side of the post-secondary educational options for Wyoming residents. Concurrent enrollment is very much at the hands of the community colleges, and they already do that very well. It's more in the dual enrollment side of things that UW sees itself being a larger contributor now that there's additional dollars and some of those credit hours can grow for students that are looking to take them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Does it cost Representative Williams? Senator Scott.
I don't know whether, Mr. Chairman, this is the appropriate time, but I want to throw out an idea or two and get this group to react to it. So if anybody has specific questions, the university there.
I have a specific question. Sorry. Does it cost a similar amount at UW as at the community colleges to have a dual enrollment student enrolled full-time, for example?
Chair Andrew, committee members. So our tuition structures are very different, but when we're looking at dual or concurrent enrollment, UW sets a rate that's on balance with the community colleges. So we have MOUs with 3 counties at the moment. That's primarily because of some modern languages that were requested that weren't offered through the community colleges. And when we go into those negotiations, we talk about the cost to the student, the cost to the district, potential cost to the family. And oftentimes those agreements are already in place with what the community colleges would charge, and UW says we'll charge nearly the equivalent rate of that. So the rates on par are different, but when we get into that discussion, we set them to be equivalent.
I guess the cost I'm talking about is not necessarily pertaining to the agreements, but the extra costs to take on another dual enrollment student as a whole.
So an extra cost of a dual enrollment student in an existing UW class is it's a sunk cost. So the instructional cost, the technology cost, the elements to have that course available to UW students are already established. So adding additional dual enrollment students to an online section are none. If we're going to create individual sections for dual enrolled students across the state, whether they be in person in some of the locations where we could do that, or online sections, that would go towards the teaching capacity of the faculty members that are already teaching them. Oftentimes, those department chairs are going to find faculty that are available to add that load. So again, it's an individual already hired by the institution, already teaching UW students, now offering a different section for dual enrolled students. So there's not additional cost there. When we talk about some of the broader support mechanisms that we've mentioned around advising, tutoring, those things from UW's perspective, as we were to grow some of the pathways that would guide students to UW, would likely take some additional cost in terms of advising, tutoring, support mechanisms that might be necessary in the high school or in the classroom.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Senator Scott.
Chairman, and first, may I say, I think gentlemen from UW did a good job of explaining a lot of these costs are fixed and you aren't varying it with one student or additional set of students. And so that has to be taken into consideration. What I'm hearing, the program at LCCC makes all kinds of sense to me if your target population is particularly students who aren't necessarily college bound, who really are looking for guidance into a paying job rapidly, that the target group you have what you're doing makes all kinds of sense to me. What I want to push for is a gap that I see is in the students who know they're going to college. That's the family tradition. That's what their expectation is. And who are probably have the ability to go into a profession requiring advanced education, who really have not settled very firmly on where they're trying to go. They're still exploring the world. And it seems to me that those students need to be advised on what's the set of the college courses they ought to take that will be beneficial to them if they go into a number of different occupations. A statistics course, a math course, which things in those? A course in writing, very difficult to teach, very important. And some of the basic survey courses, first year type college survey courses that give you a broad exposure. I went to political science, but I took an introductory biology course that has probably the most useful thing I took in college, that didn't necessarily build to the ultimate objective I had there, but had been very useful because it was a good general education. I see a gap in our advising as it concentrates on this is the career, this is the path to a selected career or a very narrow set of careers. There's a lot of students that need that. There's also a lot, I think, that need guidance on what will give me the good foundation to select any number of potential careers as I get further along and have a better idea of what I want to do as a student. And Mr. Chairman, I think, frankly, this whole dual and concurrent enrollment has been one of the smarter things that we have done educationally in the state. And we were, I think, relatively early in getting started on it. And I think these next steps are excellent, but I think there is a hole in how we're looking at it. So the LCCC approach, Mr. Chairman, is a good one, but there's something lacking for a different collection of students.
Do you have a response? Would you agree?
Hey, please, Laurel, I have a response. Please, Jim. No, please.
So, Mr. Chairman and Senator Scott, I think you make a good point, right? I mean, on this, and that's actually kind of where our thinking and kind of where we're looking and hoping to go with this with you is to kind of explore what would this look like for Wyoming students if we sit there and think about it, and not just at LCCC, but thinking about this across the state and considering this, right? Because this is, I mean, what certainly we see with LCCC is there's pathways to the community college programs, but we think about like majors and things like that too. And what are the things that we know, right? If students take college algebra, right, and they're successful in college algebra, it helps them in lots of different majors, not just one specific, right? And so I think there's a way to think about it that kind of incorporates both of what I'm hearing, right? Both of what, President Schaefer was sharing, as well as how you're thinking about it as well.
Scott.
And my thinking is in part what I've seen at, particularly at UW, where there just isn't the opportunity that there used to be for a student to explore some fields before they start. We've allowed the programs to get too many requirements they have to fulfill. And doing a little exploration leads to a 5th year of college. And that's not necessarily where we want to go. But we aren't giving the students enough time, a number of them, to learn enough to be intelligent in the selections that they're making.
Chair Andrew,
Go ahead.
Senator Scott, some majors do get dense in requirements in that students don't have as much time for exploration. That's why the core of the university studies program is so important. That allows them to get a wide array of disciplines into their educational experience. Then some programs do allow for electives, but some of the more dense majors, yep, then they're right into the more technical aspect of those programs. The thing I wanted to mention about the exploration through dual enrollment and the pathways idea that's being presented to you is right now, we don't necessarily have pathways. LCCC just mentioned a pilot program that has been quite successful already, but that's a pilot program. So this is taking a statewide initiative and statewide funding of students cherry picking courses that they think might be applicable and adding to that also the opportunity for tracked pathways with deeper support so that students can actually make some of those decisions and know that those credits are going to be applicable as they move into a community college or a four-year or UW. So I don't think this is we're no longer going to do that and now we're going to do pathways. I think it's a combination of both that provides students that are both exploring, but also those that are kind of identifying what they want to do with their lives relatively early on to get those tracks, get those credits, and save money while they're doing it within high school.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just a quick clarifier there. So the Accelerate program is certainly a pilot. It's a proof of concept. We've actually moved, we were one of 13 institutions in the nation at sort of the forefront of the Guided Pathways movement, much built off the research of the Community College Research Center. And the entirety of the college is structured around 8 pathways. And it's essentially the notion that we want students to enter with a general idea of where they're going, but they want to explore with purpose and choice. And our pathways are not earth-shattering: business and accounting to health sciences to ag and equine. And so the entirety of our curriculum is built around that. What we've been able to do because of that is create a proof of concept where we can now take those pathways into the high schools and look at the use of dual and concurrent enrollment with purpose to accelerate an on-ramp to one of those pathways. And as they proceed from sophomore all the way to graduating and then on beyond, they continue to get more refined in what they want to do and where they want to go. And so the pathway structure is now essentially inherent since 2020 in the way LCCC operates. We've just been able to build on that into the high schools. The one other comment, just Mr. Chairman, to Senator Scott's comment, I agree, but I think at the foundation, what's missing is the level of post-secondary, post-high school graduation advising, counseling, and career exploration, regardless of the demographic. I've got this wonderful neighbor, college-going family, multi-generation, and I do these wonderful advising sessions in my house. And I am not a very qualified advisor to do that, but I'm amazed that even from a college-going family, the choice selection in dual and concurrent for somebody who is interested in medical, microbiology, advanced professional level healthcare degrees, taking random business classes, which again, probably are useful, but not really intended to help her narrow her focus on which health profession or track she might want to take. So at the heart of this, I think what we're talking about is there's got to be a deeper investment and commitment to how we work with students and families, regardless of their socioeconomic standing, to make good choices, especially as more of those post-secondary choices are happening in the high school and not on a college campus. So that, I think, is our common ground. We need to figure out what's that policy structure to help us keep moving in that direction. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And we are now at public comment. Good afternoon.
Hello, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Gina Lamb Pickett, and I'm the manager of the Central Wyoming BOCES Board of Cooperative Educational Services, BOCES. And I've been in my position since 2014. I want to introduce who I have with me today, and Dr. Jay Swedberg, who is the chairperson of our BOCES board, and Alex Petrino, who is the vice chairperson. And I'll let Robin introduce herself.
Sure. I'm Robin Chandler, and I'm the executive director of Sublet BOCES in Sublet 1 in Pinedale.
I'll start if you don't mind, Robin. So I'm also a longtime member of two statewide organizations that are significantly involved with dual and concurrent enrollment programs: the Wyoming Concurrent Enrollment Partnership Group, WISEP, and the Association of Cooperative Educational Services, ACES. I want to thank you for the opportunity to provide information about our dual and concurrent enrollment program. It's a partnership between Casper College and Natrona County School District Number 1, dedicated to expanding educational opportunities for Natrona County students. The largest program funded by Central Wyoming BOCES is dual and concurrent enrollment. Through this program, we fund tuition, fees, textbooks for Natrona County students enrolled in college-level coursework. Over the past 5 years, Central Wyoming BOCES has invested an average of $1.3 million annually, that's 76% of our budget, to support student participation in these programs. In addition, our BOCES funds essential staffing support for dual and concurrent enrollment programs. During the last fiscal year, we funded a college advisor and a management position totaling $184,000. We also have an employee at NCSD number 1 who is a college facilitator who also helps advise students. These positions are critical in helping students navigate enrollment, academic planning, and successful completion of college coursework while still in high school. We also pay for enrollment software and placement test programs in the amount of $68,000 annually. BOCES plays an active role in promoting and informing students and families about the dual and concurrent enrollment opportunities available in our community. Per semester, approximately 850 students participate in our program, enrolling in about 1,300 courses at Casper College. The graduating class of 2026 in Natrona County included 999 public school students. We also had 28 homeschool seniors take part in our program. Of those seniors, 561 completed at least one course through our dual and concurrent enrollment program while in high school. This is 55%. This is higher than the national average of 34% that was noted in 2019. This year, our high school graduates in our program earned a total of 7,635 college credits during their 4 years in high school. As BOCES manager, some of my duties are to support the articulation and continued development of concurrent courses. Currently, NCSD number 1 and Casper College have articulated 77 courses for concurrent enrollment. Concurrent courses are taught in the high schools for college credit by credentialed teachers who hold both a master's degree in the subject area as well as their teaching credentials. Instructors of career and technical education courses, CTE courses, can also be credentialed through industry experience. These courses increase accessibility for students to earn college credits while still maintaining and being at their local high schools. The courses also act as a gateway for students moving to upper level courses at the college or online. Of our concurrent courses, 43 are in CTE, including auto body, auto mechanics, diesel mechanics, construction, computer science, cybersecurity, woodworking, and welding. Students also have access to general education courses such as English composition, mathematics, science, foreign languages, and American and Wyoming government. Students can enroll in dual courses offered directly through Casper College, both on campus and online. But due to our budget constraints, students are limited on the number of dual credits we fund through our program. But they can take unlimited courses at the high school for the concurrent courses. All high school students in grades 9 through 12 can take advantage of our programs, and that's for both dual and concurrent credits. Central Wyoming BOCES plays an important role in the creation, coordination, and delivery of dual and concurrent enrollment opportunities for Natrona County students. These programs provide students with valuable academic and career pathways, reduce future college costs for families, and help prepare Wyoming's future workforce. Since 1991, Central Wyoming BOCES has been a critical partner in the development and continuation of our dual and concurrent enrollment programs. I want to thank you for your time and consideration and for your continued support of educational opportunities for Wyoming students. And just to address some questions that Senator Scott has had, our data shows that the majority of our dual and concurrent students take classes in what we call general education courses. So that is one science class, one math class, one composition class, and that helps them to get to those courses they need to maybe go into any major. And I think that that's very helpful to the students. But then we also have those CTE courses that can really, I've noticed when I'm in classrooms, students who did not think that college was an option for them, especially in those CTE courses, see this now as an opportunity. They might take welding SMAW at the high school and then go up to the college and take the next level of welding. So those are all my comments for today.
Let's go ahead. We'll do questions at the end if that works for everybody. All right.
So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to speak a little more broadly on behalf of our statewide, or at least on the west side of the state, BOCES ACES group. And just so a broad understanding of when a BOCES is involved, what a difference that can make for a community. For example, many of us live in small communities that are affiliated with Western Wyoming Community College. In my community, we have one high school counselor and she spends most of her time in crisis mode. So as an outreach for Western and our BOCES director, I fulfill the role of counseling the students, as many of my BOCES counterparts in our service area for Western do as well. The difference for us is that we all serve that in advising capacity, but one of the major differences you see depending on the mill levy when you're under a BOCES is the amount of college credits that students are allowed to take. So for example, in Sublet 1, we don't put a limit on that, but our good neighbor just south of us in Big Piney puts a limit on it because their mill levy generates a lot less revenue. So some of the questions we've had as a state ACES group as we work through how this changes, we're all very excited and thankful that you've seen the importance of investing in this, but and it helps free up some money that we can put toward other community edge programs for adults. But the fact that some of us throughout the state have limited classes could potentially mean that $10 million doesn't go as far as we thought it was going to go, because we gave data based on what we currently do. So just some things to think about and to realize that for the districts that have BOCES, that's an important partner in how our students benefit. So.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the committee. I'm here as mostly to talk about our celebrations with our concurrent and dual enrollment programs. We have a significant CTE partnership with Casper College, and just thinking about like Midwest High School, which had 13 graduating seniors this year, 5 to 6 of them earned their OSHA certification just because of our CTE partnerships and their ability to earn those industry recognized credentials. I also really want to celebrate our 29 students that earned their seal of biliteracy, and that is done through a pretty significant and ongoing and very thoughtful partnership with Casper College and UW for Mandarin and the school district. We had 10 seals of biliteracy with high distinction in Spanish, 1 seal of biliteracy in Mandarin, 3 seals of biliteracy in French, 15 seals of biliteracy in Spanish, and then 1 student actually earned 2 seals of biliteracy in both Spanish and French. And so pretty significant partnership there and something that we are very thoughtful about. And there's also a lot of students that of course earn BOCES credit within the world languages programs as well. It just didn't earn that seal of biliteracy. So we really appreciate those partnerships. I think it's also important to note that our alternative high school students also have access to our dual and concurrent programs. We had 2 of those 80 graduating seniors this year earn more than 12 BOCES credits, and we had lots of other students that also earned BOCES credits as well, but just didn't hit that 12 credit and up mark. And I also want to speak to what Senator Scott had talked about like what is developmentally appropriate. We have considered that with our dual program, because taking a 14 to 15-year-old high school freshmen and sending them up to the college to do a college level class or put them in an online class might not be as developmentally appropriate. And so those students, we kind of scale it. Our freshmen can take one dual credit a semester, our sophomores to juniors, seniors, excuse me, can do unlimited, and then of course unlimited concurrent classes. So we are very thoughtful and try to be as developmentally appropriate as possible. And then one other just a statistic to note, as the 4 that were up here before about, we don't know how many of our students necessarily are going on to continue higher education, but are taking those dual and concurrent classes. Our 2025 graduating class at NCSD, we know that 38% of those students went on to continue their college education at Casper College. So we don't know other institutions' data, of course, we just know Casper College, that partnership, but we have a lot of celebrations within our BOCES program with our concurrent and dual, and just wanted to make sure you all are aware of that.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you for having us here. I don't really have much to add right now, unless there's some questions.
All right, thank you. Is there any questions for anyone at the table? Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, questions for the Casper BOCES people. Are your activities limited to Casper College, or does UW Casper, do you also have dual enrollment, is it, with them?
Mr. Chairman. So we do not have dual enrollment with University of Wyoming at Casper because it's my understanding there's an agreement that they do not teach lower level courses. They just teach upper level courses at UW Casper. So our students are taking classes through Casper College because most of those courses are 1,000 and 2,000 level courses.
Senator Scott.
And I didn't fully understand, you said there were some limitations on the numbers that they could take because of your financial situation. I didn't understand what those were.
Yes, we do have to limit the number of dual credits that students can take. So they get to take unlimited concurrent courses. Those are taught at the high school. But for dual, and Ms. Petrino suggested this, so juniors and seniors, they can take 3 classes in the fall, 3 in the spring, and 1 in the summer. Freshmen and sophomores take 1 class in the fall, 1 in the spring, and 1 in the summer. That's not only does that help our budget situation, we feel like as far as maturity, it helps that student. They still have a pretty full high school schedule that they need to meet and not to overload on those college classes, because sometimes parents and students are like kids in a candy store with this, and they want to get as many as they can. Can't blame them. But it might not be in the best interest of the student.
That's good.
As a follow-up to that, Natrona County BOCES is funded through a $500,000 levy to the district and a $500,000 levy to the college. We do not get any school foundation program money, so the reduction in property taxes, we are trying to be very thoughtful about that. Part of the limitation of dual enrollment was to kind of offset that, in addition to the agreement that we have with Casper College on our tuition pricing for concurrent classes.
Follow up.
Just one very briefly, Mr. Chairman. In this county, in your tax base, how much of it is mineral taxes and how much of it is other property taxes? In other words, what I'm trying to get at is, did the reduction in the homeowner taxes really affect your income?
That's good.
Mr. Chairman. So we did notice a reduction in property taxes. I can't tell you the percentage between mineral and property, but we planned on a 12% decrease for this year for our budget, and we pretty much estimated right on that in property taxes.
Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this would be for any of you. I was just curious if the legislature's recent recalibration effort affects the BOCES operations that we've been discussing.
While we're waiting on the rules to come out for how the $10 million in the dual, that's going to impact how we do things. We just don't know how, because we don't know the rules yet and what the district is going to choose to do because we pay for both dual and concurrent. But recalibration itself did not affect our BOCES just because our funding comes from the mill levies.
I would say on the west side of the state, it's the same thing. What the effect it did have is the unknown. Is the 10 million going to be enough? Do we still need to include money in our budget? Because there might not be enough to reimburse the school district if they're on the hook for it. So again, waiting for the rules to come out to see what it looks like, and how we may have to change our program, how we guide students. We have parameters. They have to have a certain GPA and a maturity level, you know, that's kind of their indicator. So are all those things gone or not? We don't know. So it will affect us all at some point.
Further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Is there any further public testimony in the room? Who else is planning on testifying? Anyone who's not at the table? If there's not, we'll end it with these two. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name's Jeff Wasserberg. I was a member of this committee for many years, and I'm the practitioner. I am the BOCES chairman of Campbell County. And at Campbell County, as you know, has the highest assessed valuation in the state. And so a half mil levy, as voted on by Campbell County School District Board of Trustees, brings in about $2.6 million. That vote by the Campbell County Board of Trustees is done yearly, and it is done typically at the budget hearing, which is the third Wednesday in July. Is that correct? At any rate, I've been the practitioner, the director of BOCES for the last 6 years. The biggest program I run is dual enrollment, or what we call in Pronghorn land, the Pronghorn Advantage Scholarship. And it is a dual enrollment, full tuition scholarship. I pay all the students' tuition costs, and they must buy their own book. The first semester a student is with me, they can take up to 6 credits. Once they prove to me that they are a good student, then they can take up to 16 credits. It's possible for a student to earn their associate's degree the week before they graduate from high school. The scholarship ends the day students graduate from high school. This year, I had a student set the record at 88 credits. Her name is Abby Rouse. She has been accepted at Southwestern Nova University. She hates Wyoming's winters and loves the ocean. And she's already been accepted to medical school. She has 1 year of school left. And then she is off to DO school. Last year, we had a student graduate with 78 credits, and she went to Montana State Billings, and she was already accepted at the University of Toledo Law School. So it has opened up a whole new world. One of the best things we've seen the legislature do is require credits from the colleges, the community colleges, and the University of Wyoming to transfer. So far, we have had no problems with students' credits graduating west of the Mississippi River. I did have a young man this spring graduate with his associate's degree, and he did not transfer a single credit. He got appointed to the United States Military Academy at West Point, and just like every freshman there, he starts as a damn plebe. And he was proud of it. And let me tell you that the future of the United States is strong when you have young men like him. In order to get into the program, students must have a 3.25 GPA. They must have good attendance. I have had students from every high school in my county graduate with their associate's degree. This year, for the first time, we actually had a student from Wright Junior Senior High earn her associate's degree. And the problem with Wright is it's 38 miles south of Gillette, and there are no concurrent, well, there are 3 concurrent enrollment classes at Wright High School. And so she did almost her entire program online. And that's probably been the biggest change in the years that I've been BOCES director, is the number of online courses that are offered by Gillette College. About 50% of our courses are online and 50% of them are live. And that was the biggest problem for students, was the actual schedule itself, because the college schedule and the hours don't match up with the day schedule of your high schools. Okay. So a student, once they are accepted into the program, they have 6 semesters to get 60 credits. And so they can do, it's summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring. The vast majority, and I have about 370 students in a head count, take just one course. Although I do have students taking many courses. I think the question was by Chairman Andrew that can a student drop out of school as junior and go to college full time? And the answer is no, not at my BOCES. Okay. However, a student can be a junior, and for every college class that a student takes in the dual enrollment program, they get 1 hour off at their high school. So what happens is actually my seniors, when they're going through, they're taking 16 credits an hour a semester if they can. And they go to class at the first period and they're done for the rest of the day, and they have the rest of the day to do their other 16 hours of school. And so they're dismissed. Okay. Some of the questions that were asked, Representative Kelly, I believe your question was, can a dual enrollment student take a class outside of the state of Wyoming? And the answer is, at least at my BOCES, no, you cannot. However, I understand you're from Sheridan. When Northern Wyoming Community College, I do have students taking classes actually at Sheridan College. And then that will obviously end when Gillette becomes an accredited community college. To Senator Scott, and his question was, what about students who change their mind? The vast majority of my 40 students that graduated with their associate's degree graduated with a general studies class. And this year I had an LDS student. She got her associate's degree. She's going right into her mission. And she looked at me and she says, Mr. Wasp, I'm 2 years ahead of these guys. I'm going to jump in, do my mission, and I'll still be ahead of these guys. So it opens up a lot of opportunity for those kids. And I think, are there any other questions that I need to answer? Lastly, I've had almost every student you can possibly imagine, from virtual academies. They're taking dual enrollment as long as they are a resident of Campbell County, not citizen, resident. I will put them in the program if their grades are good enough and their attendance is good enough. Okay, I've had one student who was actually a foreign exchange student take college classes. But for the most part, they're citizens of Campbell County. And I've had homeschoolers. I've had students from Westwood High School Alternative School graduate with an associate's degree. I've had one from Wright High School this year, and then I had 20 from Campbell County High School and 17 from Thunder Basin High School. The last part of this program, I also, as BOCES, pay for the dual language immersion program, which was started actually 11 years ago. And those students are now in 10th grade. Okay, so they went kindergarten all the way. So when they are at their junior high, Twin Spruce Junior High, as 7th and 8th graders, they take a FLATS exam. Now, we call that a CLEP exam, but what it is an achievement exam from Brigham Young University in Spanish. So they must speak Spanish, they must write Spanish, and they must read Spanish. And they can earn up to 8 to 12 credits of college credits as 7th and 8th graders. So they're coming into, and this is the only time that I spend my money outside of Campbell County. They come into the University of Wyoming's program, and they will take 3 classes from the University of Wyoming, because Gillette College can only teach the 1,000, 2,000 level classes. When you get that 3,000, 4,000 level, I have to go somewhere else with those students. And so that's about a fast down and dirty of what we do in Gillette. If there's any questions, I'll stand for them at this time.
Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And like I said, we do miss the good Senator Wasserberger. I'll still call him Senator Wasserberger because he was the education guru when he was in the Senate. And I'm glad to see you continued on with a great career with both. Just a question, and I think Representative Kelly asked this about if the 50% reduction happens it's on the ballot this year, it may not affect you, but it may. But will this $10 million that we, advocated last year help out, or are you concerned about that at all?
That's good.
Well, we're waiting for the rules to be written. And I guess the answer is, I don't know. Should I be concerned? I don't know how it all is going to work. I do recognize that in rural Wyoming, it's extremely difficult to deliver this program. And because I've worked at Wright Junior Senior High School. And so, but you're seeing some very active Eastern Wyoming Community College, very active in what they do with their dual enrollment. And so, I mean, and that right now is the fastest growing part of the student population is juniors and seniors in high school. And it's amazing what they do.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, let's go ahead. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Shane Ogden, Superintendent, Park County School District 16, Meeteetse. I also serve as a trustee on the board at Northwest College. I do not speak for them, but I'll speak about that relationship just a little bit, and I want to be very concise for you. Thank you for this great opportunity that you have given Wyoming students. Removing a 12 credit limit. We always kind of looked past that in Meeteetse, and we let kids take as many credits as we could get them in. We graduated 9 students just over a week ago, and all 9 of them have college credit as they leave our school. That's pretty typical for us. Rarely do we have a graduating class that does not have all students. In the past few years, we've only had a couple of dropout students, and they also left us with college credit, knowing that they are able to still be able to do the work at a college level. And so thank you for that. One thing that I think that we've heard from a number of different people that were here speaking today is that true value and the need for counseling. Counseling with students and their parents as they come in and they want to take advantage of dual and concurrent classes, but we'll just talk dual for this one a little bit, and how important it is that we have knowledgeable staff that can help guide and direct them. My own daughter is a classic example of going through, and I think she was 2 classes short of her associate's degree when she graduated. When she got to college, she realized that she was able to do the work of a junior at the college level. However, the social side was very difficult for her. She didn't ever get to mingle with students that were her age. And yes, she graduated a year and a half later with a bachelor's degree and is now in a great career. However, she missed out on a lot of opportunities. So just helping our kids understand that getting the credit isn't the only part that is a great thing about college life and university life. And if that's something that they're interested in, we need to be able to make sure that we're counseling them in that way. Counselors fall out of the instructional silo. So again, that's a position that is pretty influential, and yet that's something that we have to now fund out of the operational side. I did appreciate that there were some guarantees, especially for us little guys, for some of those counseling positions. But that is a pretty important part to not be included in such an important instructional silo. Chairwoman Schuler, if I can go back to a comment that you made yesterday, that sometimes it's nice to spend a night and think about things. If you'll give me the liberty of just a couple of minutes to go back and revisit an item of yesterday. As we were talking about the basket of goods and we were talking about YTOP and standard setting, my good friend at the department talked about in that standard setting, it gets to a point where they're looking at everything and then the question is made, okay, where is this line where 50% of your kids are at? So we're automatically, even though it's not based on a bell curve, we're creating a bell curve. If that's the direction that we're going to take in standard setting and saying that, let's draw this line where 50% of the kids are achieving it, we're not assessing whether a kid is reading at third grade level. We're assessing what educators are like, hey, I've got brilliant kids, right? They might all be a 4 on the test. But if I'm trying to figure out where half of them would lie, I think there's a little jeopardy in doing that. So with that reflection, last night I went and did a lot of research about my story, only Matitsi's story. If you take a look at our proficiencies of below basic, basic, proficient, and advanced, and I take an ELA score, right? Now, don't forget, ELA is not just reading, right? It's informational text, literary text, it's grammar, language usage, and also a small portion of that is the writing. But writing does, for those 3 grades, add into that. So if you were to take that and then compare it to a Lexile score, and Lexile scores are given through YTOP. It's given through the MAP assessment, if anybody is still taking the MAP assessment. It's also given in many of the universal screeners that we're all using with our students. So take a Lexile, and then the third piece that I take, because we're always looking for triangulation, 3 data points. And so looking at that, our universal screener, going in and looking at all of that, every single one of my students who were labeled as basic in the 2024-2025 school year, they had a Lexile score that was at or above grade level. Our universal screener also told me that they were all at or above the grade level. When I looked at my below basic kids on the YTOP score, every single one of them fell below grade level on a Lexile score and on a universal screener. So if I'm telling the story, the narrative, I would say that all but those kids that are below basic in my school are actually reading at a grade level based upon those other 2 metrics. And I know that there's different ways of looking at things and different ways of doing that, but that narrative that we promote out there is based on an ELA score, not necessarily a reading score. So if we just pull that reading element out, which our universal screeners directly are just looking at reading skills, Lexile is only looking at reading. It's not a great indicator either because it's made to get reading level in recommendations for kids. But using those 2 other indicators, I think we're doing a lot better than maybe what it sounds like we're doing when we promote that half of our kids are not reading at grade level. Again, that is only my story. I don't have data for everybody else to discuss, but I just wanted to share that piece. So thank you for giving me time.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions from the committee? Representative Williams.
Thank you, Chairman. Just so I understand correctly. An ELA score of basic on the Y-top equals at or above grade level at your school.
In my school,
At your school.
based upon those other two indicators.
Thank you.
Further, Senator Scott.
Yeah. The professional advice we got 5 years ago from my recalibration consultants didn't speak to grade level. It said the kids that tested at basic or below basic on that English language arts were not going to be able to compete as adults in the modern high-tech economy. That's kind of a different standard. It suggests to me maybe that the grade level is not adequate.
Mr. Chair.
Response?
Certainly, Senator Scott. I would disagree. Again, it's only my story, right? I have two girls who graduated from our school being basic all the way through the Y-top test. Don't forget that Y-top is a mandatory test. Effort is voluntary, right? It's a one-day test that they take. It's actually over 3 or 4 days, but it's a one time a year test. So going back to two of these girls who were able to go on, not being labeled as basic on the Y-top test, and went and graduated with honors, one at Arizona State University, the other one out of Utah State University. High honors. Two girls that are very close to me that I know very well, and were able to do that. I don't think that they didn't succeed. I'll tell you one other anecdotal story from us. Another kid that was below basic all the way through it, he graduated. He did not go to college, university. He did graduate with his FFA degree though, right? And he started a business. He and his father started a smoke shop that went around and served beef, smoked beef and brisket all over the area. And he did really well for himself, being at below basic. I think he's a great contributor to our society. And he was a below basic student.
Thank you. Further questions? Chairwoman Schuler.
I was just going to say amen to that. I think we're so hung up on those scores sometimes, and the consultants aren't from here, don't really understand sometimes the tenacity and the grit of our Wyoming kids. And so it's not all about that score, and I totally agree with you.
Madam Chairwoman, I agree also.
Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Before we go to committee directives, I want to give the Department of Education another minute to speak. They had a quick correction to bring.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Appreciate the opportunity. So yesterday there was a question from Representative Bratton on the report that we provided related to NAEP scores and whether the drop in 8th grade math from 2017 to 2024 was statistically significant or reliably lower. The department testified no, that it wasn't, but actually received a correction today that in fact it was, under statistician terms, significantly or reliably lower. So just wanted to correct that for the record.
Thank you. Any questions for the department? Seeing none. All right, we'll now move on to committee directives for the entire 2 days. So maybe we'll go through this subject by subject, starting with the basket of goods. And I guess I personally had a thought on this one. I was hoping to lead a working group on this subject without objection, I suppose, based on an idea that was brought to us about tiering the basket of goods, not necessarily probably is going as far as that idea did, but maybe getting a good start in trying to categorize some of this stuff at a grade level rather than as a whole. So that objection on that one, we could move forward, and anybody who wants to be included in that group, including people from around the state, I guess send me an email and we can talk about that one. Is there any other directives, discussion, anything on this subject? Seeing none, we'll move on to State Administration of Education. Any discussion? Chairman Schuler?
Oh, let's do.
Yeah. All right, Representative Lawley actually volunteered to lead a working group on this to see if there are any adjustments that could be made, taking further public comment, and there may or may not be a bill proposal out of that we could look at the next meeting. So without objection, we can move forward with that and move on to Senator Scott.
That last one, I hope they will look at the question of should the State Board of Education be moved into the State Department of Education? And would such a bill draft be appropriate? I'm not sure it is or is not, but I think it does need to be looked at.
Senator Scott, I'm sure Representative Lawley, after reviewing the meeting and what we talked about, will definitely be looking into that. Senator Rothfuss.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And technically, this is where we talked about charter schools and their ADM calculation was intertwined into all of that. So I'll make a motion to have legislation drafted for consideration for the next meeting that provides that charter schools calculate their ADM separately from their school district for purposes of determining whether they're going to utilize the higher of the last year's actual ADM or the prior 2-year average, so that calculation be independent from the school district, and then provide flexibility to work with the fiscal staff and the rest of our staff to figure out how to appropriately calculate that so that it's accounting for district ADMs in an accurate way.
All right, great. We'll move forward with that. Anything else on state administration? Moving into school discipline. Is there any suggestion?
I think this is the one where Senator Rothfuss offered to chair this subgroup. Is that correct?
We've been through this one already. Okay.
Just
Anything
recap.
else on that? Anything else on that subject? Okay. Anything on artificial intelligence? Seeing none. Virtual education? Any comments? Bill drafts? All right, dual and concurrent enrollment. I have one if no one else does. I would propose that we draft a bill in order to explore what it would look like to follow the funding model based on the Washington State Running Start program. I think that would allow us to at least explore a much cleaner funding model where we aren't relying on 3 to 4 different sources of funding to get students through a program that actually costs less than sending them to high school. we're funding the community college, we're funding the full ADM from the block grant. We have BOCES involved, and we also have this extra $10 million going into the equation. If we could have an up to 1.4 ADM funding stream, that would be the sole funding source for dual and current enrollment, then there wouldn't be the existing limitations that are very reasonable and I would argue inequitable. I think that it would also, I mean, if we just attach the money to where the student is actually attending school, be it the high school or the community college, there would still be, from what I understand at least, plenty left over to be able to fund the sports, the administration, whatever it is that the local school district needs to do for that student. So I'd like to explore that concept with a bill draft through the rest of the summer as well.
So, Mr. Chairman, from the perspective of drafting legislation, you're going to repeal the allowable mill levy for BOCES. You're going to eliminate the post-secondary enrollment options program. You're going to allow a maximum of 1.4 ADM for high school students. And you're going to repeal the $10 million appropriation annually that you just implemented this past school year. Is that my understanding?
I think by the time this would be effective, if it were passed, the $10 million would probably have been used, unless that's was that a one-time appropriation, or was that, no, it's an ongoing?
Mr. Chairman, that is a 20 million or 10 million annual appropriation, part of the standard budget going forward.
Right.
In perpetuity.
I guess the answer would be yes. I guess the 1.4 ATM would be shifted to wherever the student happened to be attending to fully fund their activities at the community college and at the high school, depending on how they split that up. That would be the idea. Senator Office.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The concern I have about this approach, and I don't know exactly how they do it in the state of Washington, but the way it is through the recalibration bill, it's categorical and it can only be spent on dual enrollment. It'll get used for dual enrollment. Nobody's going to question anything. They're just going to allow dual enrollment, and that's the anticipated outcome that is desired. It'll happen, and it's brand new, so we'll see how it interplays with our BOCES and see how BOCES shift utilization of their funding to other things, because they'll be less reliant on using their mill for this purpose. So it'll be interesting to see how they play it out. And it does free up some money that school districts were previously using and allocating to it. So we'll kind of see how that shakes out. If we switch to an ADM, I feel like there's a lot that we have to rewrite, because we still want the same outcome where it's effectively categorical, where students are able to utilize the money for dual enrollment. So just putting it up to ADM, I don't see how that achieves the very simple and clean objective of the way it was put into recalibration. And I guess I would say this also, there hasn't been a single person that said a bad word about that aspect of recalibration. We've heard some bad words about other aspects of recalibration. Couple. That's one area where everyone's just like, well, and that's great. You know, thanks, good job. So I guess I don't know why we're trying to fix something that we really did a pretty good job of just fixing with recalibration. And maybe there's more to it that's in the Washington model that I don't understand.
I think ultimately it's because the opportunities are rather inequitable throughout the state. I mean, some places, school districts and community colleges are figure it out between those two funding models. In some places, BOCES money is being injected. However, it seems like there's plenty of money available through the block grant model to pay for whatever those activities are that the students are doing. And the idea would be to allow every student to take up to full-time dual enrollment to be able to get an associate's degree, regardless of where they are in the state. Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not going to say we ought to have the chairman ought to be able to get a bill drafted. I don't have any objection to that, but I really wonder, I didn't hear any limitations that struck in the testimony that struck me that anybody was being denied reasonable opportunity. I think that this dual enrollment feature has been very successful in the state. And it sounded to me like from the testimony we were hearing, everybody was able to fund it pretty well. And I'm a little nervous about putting all those repealers in and doing away with the funding source. If you revised your bill draft such as to make sure that everybody had at least a certain level of funding available, that might be different. But I'm not an enthusiast on doing away with the current system. It's kind of patchwork, but it seems to me it's working.
Senator Office.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. And I would, I'll certainly support exactly what Senator Scott said. If you as chairman want a bill draft, I'm certainly going to support you having a bill draft. I just don't know what we're going to improve. And if the objective is what you described, which is that any student can have enough credits paid for to achieve that outcome, I think what we did through recalibration effectively does that. We took off the limits. That was part of it. We understood that some districts did not feel comfortable paying effectively an unlimited amount, so they had a cap on it. So we provided the additional $10 million and said you can't have a cap on it. I think the system right now is structured in a way that it will meet that interest. Because going back to what you were saying a second ago, there still is the money for the original ADM for the student that's available. So if we remove the cap, which we did through the recalibration bill and added the additional 10 million, it basically says you can't refuse students that want as many credits as they want. Well, if you run out of the $10 million, they have to go into their own ADM, which was by design. That was our intent. It's okay because the ADM, as we know, is actually less than what they have for cost at the colleges as well, which is what you pointed out. So I think it achieves your objective better than you're suggesting we shift it to right now. But again, I wouldn't hold you back if you want to build around.
I guess the issue I'm seeing is that we fund it basically 4 different ways for an $11,000 cost that ends up costing probably about what, $35,000 in the end once, if someone were enrolled entirely in a dual enrollment program. I mean, you're paying the full value of the ADM, you're paying the FTE for the community college, and you're paying whatever portion of that $10 million plus the BOCES, and in the end, the cost is $11,000.
On that, I'd say we're not paying the value, Mr. Chairman, of the FTE because that is a fixed pie calculation. So that's just a shift of dollars where you're going to pay tuition from the school through agreement to the college, but even though it shifts potentially through the addition of FTEs of one school versus another, we don't change the total amount of money from the legislature. It's actually a flaw in the funding model that they've been complaining about for 9 years now, I think, since we created that model. But yeah, it doesn't change that. So that's one aspect of it that actually isn't changed. It is a payment from the school district. And you're right, we're robustly paying for it because we're paying the ADM for the student, and then we're also supporting any dual enrollment costs that are billed by the school. So you're really paying for it twice-ish. That's probably fair. We were hearing complaints, honestly, that districts were limiting the amount of availability. One way or another, that was happening, and so the resolution fund was the solution to it. And there might be more efficient ways, but I do think again, it depends on what your interest is. If your interest is to shore it up and make it so that we're hitting the right actuals and we're saving money, that's different. And there might be a way to implement that. If your interest is what you stated your interest was, which was to ensure everybody could get an associate's degree, I think we're hitting a home run on that interest. So it depends on the interest we're trying to serve.
I guess if the committee is willing, I'd like to continue to explore this and possibly bring a bill draft or not based on this conversation. So I'm happy to be wrong, but all right. Further discussion?
Not on that.
Okay, not on that. And that's the end of our list. So please go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I missed my opportunity because I just didn't know where on the agenda we talked about it. And clearly we passed it. Going back to the discussion that we had about physical education, which did turn out, I think, to be on the school administration topic, there were issues raised about not seeing appropriate times for physical education provided, and that there was no clear guidance and nothing uniform. I don't think us putting in statute, you need 30 minutes a day or something like that is appropriate. But I do think, and in talking with former Senator Cost, who's on the State Board of Education, it looks like they're going to be looking at those standards as their next standards. So my suggestion would be for us to draft a short non-codified bill, so non-codified statute, directing the State Board of Education in their next review of physical education standards to produce guidance, and guidance being the right word, on access to number of hours for, et cetera, physical education, so that it's not necessarily prescriptive, but incorporate that into their workload. So that would be my motion. So it is drafting a bill, but it's not in statute, it's non-codified, and it would be providing a directive for this upcoming drafting of the standards to provide guidance.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, can I jump in on that?
Representative Kelly.
Thank you. I agree with that. I was wondering if we could somewhere in that guidance put something in there about how removing one of these subject materials from a student as a form of discipline should be revisited. We don't take away science from a kid who loves science if he gets in trouble. So there's a difference between taking away recess time or free time versus taking away an actual part of their curriculum.
Mr. Chairman, that's absolutely friendly. And so let's incorporate appropriate use, things along those lines in the language.
All right, further discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Further.
Mr. Chairman, that is Senator Brennan joining us from Zoom.
Senator Brennan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think you guys probably have the support for that, but I would agree that that's a great idea, and I would definitely support the board taking a close look at both of those things. I think PE, physical activity, is highly important for our kids today, and so whatever we can do to not take that away as a form of discipline and to encourage that movement, I fully support.
All right, thank you. Anything further? All right, we are adjourned. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't understand why we have to do his part of it, although I do understand